Hey everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about the books I read between March 2nd and March 8th. First up, I read The Fourth Apprentice by Erin, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This is the first book in the fourth arc of 6 in the Warriors series. If you're new to my channel, Warriors is a series about groups of forest cats who live in clans and have to coexist. This book picks up shortly after the end of the last arc of 6, and we have a new point of view in it. In this book, the cats are experiencing a massive drought. Something has caused the river to dry up and the lake level has gone down. All the clans are hurting as the drought has also affected their prey. Tensions are high amongst the clans as they are all starving, and so the cats must figure out what has happened to the water. I really love the new point of view in this book. This is another reread for me, and I had forgotten how much I love the new point of view in this book. I really like the new character that is introduced and whose eyes we get to see the Warriors world through. I thought this was an interesting start to this arc of 6, and I like the way they wove in the threads of the last arc with this book, and the way they set up this arc going forward, because you can kind of see the beginnings of what is going to happen in this arc. Like, the seeds have been planted. This is an arc I haven't finished, so I'm really hoping that in the very near future I can finally finish this arc and find out the rest of our newest character's story. Next up, I read The Ever After by Jodilyn and I gave this book 4 stars. This book follows May, who falls into a portal and enters the land of Ever After. As a live one, she is not supposed to be there. If she is discovered by the evil Bo Cleavel, he will destroy her and she will never see her mom or cat again. With the help of some new friends, she must find a way to leave the Ever After and head home. So this book was a lot spookier than I thought it was going to be. I really wished I hadn't read the beginning of this at night. I mean, I'm a big old chicken, so probably most of you wouldn't be bothered at all, but there were definitely bits about this that had me going, yeah, I should not have read this before bed. But it wasn't like a bad spooky. It was just a not necessarily nighttime reading. I liked getting to see May come to terms with the fact that she was in the Ever After and the danger that she was in. I enjoyed getting to discover this new world with May and kind of figure out why it is so dangerous for a live one to be there. I was not expecting this book to end the way it did, and it definitely left me chomping at the bit to continue on with this series, so I will definitely be picking up book 2. Next up, I read Blackbird Volume 1 by Sam Humphreys, and I gave this book 2.5 stars. In this book, we follow Nina, who believes there's magic in the world. During an earthquake when she was a kid, she remembers seeing a magical creature. This creature had ordered everyone to forget, but Nina managed to remember. She's tried to tell people this, but no one believes her. Years later, this same magical creature kidnaps her sister in front of her, and she must find a way to get her sister back. So this book sounded interesting on the surface, but I had a hard time following what was going on. I thought that there was some neat art in this graphic novel, but that didn't make up for the fact that I wasn't super into the plot or the characters. I didn't really like the twists that came in it, and I definitely will not be continuing on with this series. Next up, I read The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie and I gave this book 5 stars. In this book, we follow Yanka, who was found abandoned outside of a bear cave when she was a toddler. When she is 12 years old, her legs turn into bear legs. She ends up setting off in the forest to find out the truth about her past. I really enjoyed the story. I liked Yanka as a main character, and I liked getting to see her struggle with her love for her current family, but her need to know where she came from. I liked the fact that her mom tried so hard to ignore the fact that her legs were bear legs, but Yanka couldn't, and so she set off in search of the truth. I liked getting to see her develop friendships along the way. Another interesting aspect to the story is that a man named Anatoly, who is a friend of her mom's, has been telling her these fantastical tales her entire life, and every once in a while we get a chapter that is a story that Anatoly told her as she grew up, and I really liked getting to hear those stories. I thought they really added to the book. It was also interesting seeing her come to terms with the fact that while these are stories that she thought Anatoly had made up because they're magical and out of the realms of possibility, that every story Anatoly told her had some basis in truth. All in all, I just really, really enjoyed this book and this world, and getting to spend time with Yanka and seeing her journey of discovering who she really is and who she wants to be. Next up, I read 3 Times Lucky by Sheila Turnage, and I gave this book 2.5 stars. In this book, we follow Mo, who is an orphan. She was taken in by the Colonel, a man who can't remember his own past, and Miss Lana, who runs the town's diner. Mo ends up teaming up with her friend Dale to solve the mystery of who murdered a man in their town. So I wasn't super into the mystery aspect of this book. I did not like how it played out. I also did not enjoy the fact that I had a very hard time picturing the characters. I can't tell you anything about Mo outside of the fact that she's a girl. I can't tell you what most of the characters look like. I feel like there needed to be more description in this book, and I wasn't getting it. And like I said, the mystery aspect of this book did not engage me at all. I thought the reveal of the murderer was kind of anticlimactic and would have been very, very hard for the reader to put together. And especially in a middle grade mystery, I feel like there should be a good chance that you can solve the mystery too. Otherwise, what's the point of reading it? Like, if I as an adult can't figure it out, how is a middle grader supposed to put the clues together? And while I do love in mysteries when they can completely bamboozle me, I don't like the idea that I couldn't have figured it out for myself. And I feel like in this case, there was no way I was going to be able to put those pieces together. All in all, this just wasn't a book for me, and I won't be continuing on with the series. Next up, I read The Storybook of Legends by Shannon Hale, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. This is a fairy tale retelling of sorts. In this book, we follow Apple White, daughter of Snow White, and Raven Queen, the daughter of the Evil Queen. They are finally in the year of school where they get to fulfill their legacy. In this world, history is set up to repeat itself. So Apple and Raven will eventually go on to play out the same story that their moms did. This year is where they finally sign their names to the Storybook of Legends and seal their fate. However, Raven doesn't want to be like her mother and wonders if she has the ability to change her fate. However, she has no idea what will happen if she doesn't sign the book. And unfortunately, her fate is tied to Apple's fate. So whatever choice she makes affects them both. I quite enjoyed the start of this series. I thought it was quite interesting to see Raven struggle with her mom's legacy and not wanting to have to follow in her footsteps because she's not like her mom. I thought it was interesting to see Apple struggle with the fact that if Raven bucks the system, it affects her in a major way, as they have no idea what happens to people who don't agree to follow their fate. I thought this was a very interesting start to the series, and I'm quite curious to see what happens next for Raven and Apple after the choices they made in this book. Next up, I read Property of the Rebel Librarian by Alison, and I gave this book 4.25 stars. In this book, we follow a girl named June, whose parents find out that she read a book they deem inappropriate for her to read. When they find out she took this out of the school's library, they take their concerns to the school board, which leads to that book being banned and the librarian put on suspension. This also leads to the library being closed down until all of the books in the library can be checked and deemed appropriate for their age group. June's parents also decide that they need to go through every book June owns to make sure that they are appropriate for their daughter. June misses her books, however, and one day on the way to school comes across a free little library and takes a book. As the rules at home and at school get stricter and stricter, June ends up running a secret free little library at school. She finds out she's not the only one at school that loves reading and thinks that the adults are taking things a little too far. What she's doing will get her in major trouble with the adults if she's found out, but she thinks it's worth the risk. So I really, really enjoyed this book. I liked getting to see June struggle with wanting to be able to make her own decisions and wanting her parents to trust that she is capable of making those good choices. I also felt her frustration with the way her parents and the adults were behaving, and I can't imagine having all of my books taken away and being told that I am not allowed to read unless this book has been read by my parents and approved. I also sympathized with June, as she felt it was her fault that the librarian got suspended, because if her parents had never seen that book, then she felt the librarian wouldn't have gotten in trouble. I also really enjoyed getting to see that there were other kids in school who enjoyed reading as much as June, and the moment that the adult said, hey, you can't do this, the kids wanted to do the exact opposite, because I feel like that is a very true to form response, that a lot of times it's when you tell somebody they can't do something that then all of a sudden they want to do it. I just really thought this was a realistic view at the parents trying to protect their child and wanting to make sure that the reading material that their child had access to was appropriate for their age, while also showing the frustration that June and her classmates were feeling with the idea that they were being so strictly monitored in what they were and were not allowed to read. Next up, I read Ghost of a Chance by Susan Maupin Schmidt, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This is the second book in the 100 Dresses series, and we follow Darling Dimple, who lives in a castle where there is a closet full of magical dresses that can change her into other people when she wears them. In this book, items go missing from all over the castle, and after seeing what appears to be a ghost, Darling and her friends wonder if a ghost is responsible for all the thefts. Darling, with the help of her friends and her dresses, must get to the bottom of what's going on and find out if there really is a ghost haunting the castle and stealing items from everyone. So I love this series. This book is just as whimsical as the first book. I like the idea that they have introduced this ghost because it is a magical castle that's been around for hundreds of years, and I feel like people believing that it could be haunted makes a ton of sense. I feel like all old buildings have ghost stories attached to them, so I love that Darling hears these ghost stories and starts to wonder whether there really is a ghost. And because this world is so whimsical, you as the reader also don't know if it's possible that there's a ghost haunting this castle. I really enjoyed getting to see Darling trying to figure out what was going on while also juggling all her other responsibilities and the effect this takes on the relationships in her life. I really love this series and this world and cannot wait to read more from it. And lastly, I read Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston, and I gave this book 5 stars. In this book, we follow 13-year-old Amari, whose brother has gone missing, and she can't figure out why more isn't being done to find out what happened to him. She really adores her older brother and just wants to know where he is. He left behind a clue, though. Amari finds a suitcase in her brother's closet that leads her to the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. This gets her one step closer to her brother, but also turns her world upside down, as she's introduced to a side of the world she never knew existed. But Amari is determined. She will not let anything stop her from finding out the truth of what happened to her brother. I thought this was such a fantastic book. I really thought that Amari was such a strong character, and she didn't let her fear hold her back. She's thrown into this strange and unfamiliar world with a bunch of people she's never met who know far more about the world of supernatural affairs than she does. I think it's interesting to watch her struggle there and how some of the struggles she was having in her regular life are being transferred over into the supernatural world, that just because the world is supernatural doesn't mean that all of the issues she has goes away. Come here. You poor Tang. You want to say hi? Do not pull my shirt. Say hi. Say hi. He's not happy that I'm filming. It's almost done, bud. I liked getting to discover the supernatural world with Amari and seeing how a lot of those things that she didn't know exist were basically right on her nose the entire time. I liked getting to see Amari start to piece together what happened to her brother and uncover clues to his disappearance. I really enjoyed the twist at the end, even if I did kind of clock some of it in the lead up. I'm super excited that this seems to be the first book in a new series because I cannot wait to spend more time with Amari and her friends in this new world. So these are some of the books I've read recently. Have you read any of these books? If so, feel free to talk to me about them in the comments section below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a comment emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!